I'm here today with Harvey Heerspink of Jenison, Michigan. The interviewer is Adam Jones of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project, and today's date is August 3rd, 2015. All right, to begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Holland, Michigan, 1925, in November 7.
All right.
And we were poor people. My dad never had a car.
Go ahead.
We had 2 bicycles in our family. We had 3 boys. So we all had to share the same bicycle.
What did your father do for a living?
My father worked in a furniture factory.
Okay.
Furniture factory. He never had a car. He rode his bike too to work.
Okay, so you guys
It
lived...
was a different type of life, I'll tell you, in those days.
Yeah.
We knew what poverty was because we lived through the Depression in the 30s.
Speaking of which, was your father able to keep his job through the Depression?
He was out of work for 2 years, and I really don't know how we lived in those years. But somehow we got by. We had 5 children in our family, and father was out of work for 2 years. There was not the welfare system too much that we have now.
Right.
To catch these people in a safety net. But somehow we survived.
More community involvement.
Community, people helped.
Yeah.
We helped each other. And everybody that we knew was on the same boat, so we didn't really realize how poor everybody was.
Makes sense. Okay, so you grew up in Holland then?
Yep.
All right. And did you attend school in Holland?
I attended Holland Christian High School.
Okay.
Graduated in 1943.
All right. And then I think you mentioned before the interview that you went to Hope College?
I started Hope College in September of 1943. I wanted to get an education in. I went 1 semester and then I had to drop out, of course, because of the draft. So I discontinued Hope. After the war I came back.
Okay. Now you're more than old enough to remember Pearl Harbor. Do you remember where you were when you heard about the...
I was on a Sunday afternoon. We had finished eating. It was about 1:30 in the afternoon, and we heard it on the radio that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. So that's the first we knew of it, and we knew we were in the war then.
Yeah.
That's where we came in.
Now, had you been following the news of the war prior to Pearl Harbor?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. We were very much engaged. Of course, we just had radio.
Yeah. Radio, newspaper.
Yeah, we didn't have a newspaper. Yeah, we had newspaper, but we didn't have TV. And Roosevelt always gave talks on the radio. His fireside chats.
Yeah. I'm sure the attack on Pearl Harbor still came as a shock, though.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And we lost so much. We
Yeah.
lost so much of our fleet.
Yeah.
And people couldn't believe that we lost so much there. And we looked at that and thought it's going to be a long time to come back because we lost so much in that surprise attack.
And I'm sure you probably assumed that since there was this idea that it's going to last a while, that you were probably going to get involved
sure.
at some point. Yeah.
Well, the war in Europe was raging, and Churchill wanted us to get in, and of course the Japs gave the final push to put us in.
Yeah.
And Germany declared war on us, and so we were in.
And it begins. Okay. So you go for a semester at Hope College, and it says here that you got drafted in February 1944.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about that whole
Okay,
process?
we got drafted there. I went down to Camp Lee, Virginia for basic training in the Quartermaster Corps. Was trained as an Army baker. I was volunteered for special duty after that was done, to work with the Army, special duty, going from city to city, setting up military displays to sell war bonds. And so I did that for about 3 months, and traveled with a large group, and we put up the displays in, let's see, in Washington, in New York City, Central Park. We camped in Central Park. No, we stayed in City College, New York. We put up displays in Central Park there, and we went to Philadelphia, we went to Baltimore, we went to Chicago, Soldier Field. We camped in Soldier Field and right there, and put on big Army displays. People came and they viewed all the weapons that we showed them what we were using, and they bought war bonds,
Okay.
which helped finance the war. I myself, when I was in, bought war bonds. I put
Okay.
a part of my pay away every payday for a war bond.
Oh, wow.
So that matured in a number of years. Cashed them in after the war was done.
Now, you mentioned before the interview, too, that when you got drafted, you reported to Detroit for the physical.
Yep.
And that you actually had the option.
Yeah,
To
I had the
not-
option, if I wanted to, I didn't have to join. Because the doctor says, you got a heart murmur. He says, I don't think it's ever going to bother you. But he says, if you like, I can reject you, or you can go in. And I said, I want to go in. My friends are gone. We had a high wave of patriotism because we were attacked by, and it's a different day and age right now. But in those days, we knew that we had to win this war. There was an evil people over there in Hitler, and you know what he did all. We had to combat that.
Yeah. And from Detroit, then you said you went to Fort Sheridan for processing?
That's right.
Okay. And how long did you wind up spending at Fort Sheridan?
Just about 2-3 days.
Okay, so really quick.
Yeah, very quick. They transferred us by train into Camp Lee, Virginia.
Okay. So now we get into basic training.
We got into basic training there, which went on for 17 weeks. It was very intensive. We had combat courses. We had training and landings, down landing nets.
Okay.
We had gas mask drills. We had the combat course. We've been through barbed wire and over obstacles with machine gun fire over our heads.
Yeah.
And this was kind of standard in those days.
Yeah. And then I think you also showed me that you got the sharpshooter medal.
Yes.
So, but I'm sure by this time you guys are training with the M1 Garand.
No, we used Springfields.
Still using
threes.
So
We
these are-
had the old Springfields yet, and
Okay.
we did not get into the M1s. Well, we were kind of early there, and the M1s, they didn't have enough, I guess, to give us in training.
Oh, that makes sense. They're trying to.
We had
save
some
them.
Springfield rifles, and they all had to be sighted in, and we worked intensively with that. In a rifle range, we went down very often. I worked in the pits already too. Somebody had to be down in the pits to register the hits that were
Oh,
done
okay.
by the people firing away.
Now, did anyone ever get hurt by being in the pits downrange? Or?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of. However, in that combat course, you got to be a little careful there because you don't want to put your head up too high because the bullets are about 40 inches over your head. You had to crawl on your belly through the obstacles. The machine guns are set up on concrete because they were afraid that if they set them up on the soil, eventually they would sink down into the soil and the barrel of the gun would be shooting into the people crawling there. So it was very firm.
Oh, okay.
It was safe enough if you watched what you're doing.
Makes sense. And what kind of base was Camp Lee? Was it pretty big and built up?
We stayed in barracks. We stayed in barracks where we had about 200 or more in each barracks. And we were in platoons. And we marched us out here and there. We were in the final stage of our preparation. We were in AP Hill Military Reservation for training.
Okay.
And for a couple of weeks there, I think I lived there without taking my socks off. It was so cold and rainy, but we survived.
Yeah, the next question too would be, how did you adjust to being in the Army?
We took it. The Army has a way of putting into your head after a while that you are invulnerable to anything, you know. And so we were young, only 18. We managed to, I went in at 137 pounds. By the time basic training was done, I gained 17 pounds. All muscle.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Now at this time you said you were also were you getting quartermaster training as well?
Yeah, then after the basic training, I went for 6 weeks or 4 or 5, I forget how many weeks, in the quartermaster in the cooks and bakers school. I completed that course. After I completed it, I was told, well, we don't know where to really put you right now. Why don't you take the course again? I says, I went through it once. And the sergeant in charge, he says, well, yeah, why don't you just show up in the morning, he says, and answer the roll call and kind of disappear, it says, for the rest of the day if you feel like taking it again. So I didn't do much for a few weeks. After that, I had the opportunity to go on this special duty with the Army, so I selected that. I had a choice. I was very careful about volunteering for anything, because some of these volunteer things don't turn out too well, but this turned out to be okay.
And with the baking school, what did that consist of?
We were taught to bake Army loaves of bread with big field ovens, which are about 5 foot tall. They were operated by gasoline ovens. And so we baked bread in big loaves, field ovens, they were called. You set them right up in the field. And you lit the ovens with gas, they were gasoline operated. I was always afraid they're going to blow up on me. But we were taught, I have yet a field manual of how to bake Army bread. I got a field manual. But we were told how to do that. We had our own mixers that were set up to all gasoline driven.
Okay.
Because we were out in the fields.
How is Army bread?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good. Just basic bread.
Fill you up.
Army bread is just white bread. We didn't get anything fancy at all.
All right. And then one other quick question about basic training and quartermaster training. Were you training with, what were the guys like that you were training with? Were they from all over the United States?
All over the United States, yeah.
And were they all mostly draftees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I met my cousin in Camp Virginia. He was there too for quartermaster training.
Oh, okay.
I lost track of him. I don't know where he went to. He survived the war, and I talked to him later.
But
they came from all over,
yeah.
Every part of the country. Quite a mixture.
And then by the time you got into basic training too, and you got done with it, this is getting into mid to later 1944. Did you hear about D-Day happening?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I heard all about it. And it was rough going there. Fortunately for me, I wasn't quite ready, but if I had not been on this special duty with the Army, I know that later in the summer there of 1944, they were desperate for troops. So there were a lot of troops in the United States that were given a quick, hurried course and refresher and something and shipped over there. But I was working with the Army special duty, so I missed that. I just felt it was the Lord's hands keeping me safe, because I could have been over there. And I read about what happened at D-Day, and I thought, yes, that could have been me. Yeah.
All right, so you volunteer for the special duty, and you give a really good brief overview of what you did and where you traveled, but talk a little bit about what an average show would have been like.
All we did is put up displays in big army tents. We laid out all the equipment, and all we were there present. All we did is answer questions. The people went through and just looked at all that equipment and all the weapons and all this, and we allowed them to ask questions. And we did not present any lectures or anything like that. We were just there to answer questions.
Okay.
But they came in droves, and they wanted to see what we had. And then, of course, the main idea was to get them to sign up for war bonds.
Okay. Now that by this late in the war, the fear of invasion had pretty much been negated, but were there still blackouts in major American cities?
I don't know.
No.
I was not involved with that. There might have been.
Okay,
I understand there has been, but I was not on the coastline, on the coastal cities. I don't know.
Okay.
There may have been.
Okay. And as you are traveling through the United States, what did you notice about the effect that the war was having on the United States at home?
Well, there were shortages. There were shortages, of course, everywhere. And people were saving tinfoil and rubber and everything under the sun that could be used in the war effort. One of the things that was so great in America, we were able to produce just unbelievable amounts of war goods. You can't believe the bombers that were piling out of Willow Run in those days in the Detroit area.
Oh, yeah.
They were sending out bombers every day or two. One came off the assembly lines. And we're not talking just dozens or hundreds, we're talking several thousands.
Oh, yeah.
So that when the bombing campaigns came in Europe, we were able to send 2,000-3,000 bombers at one time. People that lived through that in the Netherlands, they said when those bombers came over, it was just like you could almost darken the sun. They were so close together.
Oh, yeah.
And this is something that Hitler and his Nazi regime couldn't keep up with.
Yep.
The tanks and the trucks and the jeeps. So there were shortages of cars
Yeah.
in America that was not being built. They were not being built for civilian use.
Yeah.
Everything was for the war effort.
Well, yeah, had to be. And speaking of that, was your father, did the furniture factory that he worked at, did that get?
No.
No.
No, there were some factories that produced wooden gliders.
Okay.
There were gliders being produced, and you know what those were? Didn't have any engine on them. They were just being towed,
Yep.
and they were made out of plywood. And they came down with a crash, and people were pretty shaken up when those things came down. They cut them loose over Europe, and they landed behind the lines,
Oh, yeah.
and the paratroopers came in also.
One of those good idea on paper, but not so good in.
Yes, and everything did not go according to plan.
Yeah. All right. So then, you said you did that for about 3 months.
I think so, about 3 months.
All right, and then.
Then I came out on duty. I came out on orders to go to the Pacific Theater, and I saw my name. Posted up on the bulletin board, and I got to go home for 10-day furlough or 2 weeks, and then report to the Pacific Coast. But then an hour later, the hospital called, wanted me to come in to have a tonsillectomy, so I got scratched. My unit went to the Pacific. I don't know what happened to those fellows. Lost track of them. I was hospitalized for a while. They took out my tonsils. An Army doctor did it, and it was a horrible scene. He hadn't done very many of these before, and I can tell you all about that operation, but I was laid up there for about 2-3 weeks in recovery.
Oh, wow.
Because I had been to Washington D.C. on leave about a couple of months earlier, and I was on a weekend pass, and I had such a sore throat, it was terrible. I couldn't swallow anymore. So I was with my friends, and I says, I don't know, I don't think I can make it back to my base. Take me and just let me turn into Walter Reed Hospital in Washington. So Walter Reed had me in the hospital for a number of days, treating my sore throat. They said, you've got a badly infected throat, and you're going to have a tonsillectomy after this infection is down. Well, it cleared up. When I went back to my unit, they discharged me from the hospital in Washington. I went back to my unit, kind of forgot about it until the day that the hospital called and said, we got an order here from Walter Reed to take out your tonsils. So that's how I got scratched. I didn't go to the Pacific. Then I got transferred into the Air Corps shortly after.
Okay.
We're arranging troops to go over to Europe. And so that's how I got into the Air Corps next.
All right.
Through no effort of my own, I was just transferred.
Okay, so were you assigned to an actual unit in the Air Corps initially, or was it just you're in the Air Corps?
We went over in a convoy of 50 ships. 50 ships. We were protected by destroyers all around us. I was on a Liberty ship, and the idea was to bring these troops over and to drop them off in various spots where they were needed. We left New York City. When we were at sea, I was at sea 18 days, we heard a rumor on board our ships that the Germans had targeted my ship that I was on. It was the Fairfax. And the reason that they targeted that ship, if you remember the sinking of the Dorchester with the 4 chaplains on board, do you remember that at all?
Well, I don't, but it'd also be
Yeah,
good
the
for-
Dorchester. My ship was in a group of 3. We had 2 sister ships, the Dorchester, the Chatham, and the Fairfax. The Germans had sunk the Dorchester with a lot of the crew lost their life. The 4 chaplains on board that ship gave their life jackets to others. They went down with the ship. They sunk the Chatham up in North Atlantic off in Labrador, up there somewhere. And there was a report that they had targeted our ship that was going to be the 3rd one. But by that time, the submarines were kind of getting beat in the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
And I never believed that rumor too much until about 3 months ago. I was on the computer and I was doing some work and Googling some certain things, and it came out. I was Googling my ship that I was on, and I did find it there that it said the German High Command had orders to try to sink my ship the minute it left New York. But we were well protected.
Yeah.
We didn't have any trouble. So what happened, they dropped us off in the Azores because we were needed there. Some of the other troops went on to other ports in Europe.
Okay. And why? Do you know why they picked the Azores for you, or was it just?
Well, the army, somewhere in the Azores, they said we need a guy to supervise the mess hall over in the airbase. Mm-hmm. So they looked over our roster and they said this guy had a cooks and baker training, so let's send him. That's how you end up in these places.
Yeah.
I got over there, and my sole job was to supervise the mess hall for troops that were going in and out of Europe, flying in and out. Okay. And after the war was done in Europe, these troops had to be redeployed to the Pacific. A great number of them came through our air base over and over. Every 10 minutes, day and night, we had C-54s landing, filled up with troops. that were going back to the States for redeployment to the Pacific. And so our job, and I didn't do any of the work myself in the mess hall, we had native people that did it. Our job was to provide them with some food and give them what they needed for a continued trip and send them back to the States. But this went on for weeks.
Yeah.
And we had thousands of troops came through. In fact, I have a friend here, living here, he says, I went through your air base. Maybe I saw you, he says. He was one of those fellows that was redeployed.
Oh wow. What was it? Was it just called the Azores Air Base, or did it have another?
It was a British air base.
Okay.
The British air base. The British had the lease on the air base. The Americans came in and built most of it, as usual. So we were up there with the British.
Okay.
And in the earlier days before I got there, they spent a lot of time clearing out mines and clearing out submarines.
Okay.
But I remember one incident where a plane came in from Europe. We knew something was wrong. It was a big C-54 loaded down with troops, and we said, there's something wrong with that plane. It's not behaving right. We watched it come down, and the plane hit the runway, and it bounced all over. It was falling back and forth and so on, and we went out to find out what was going on, and we found that the plane had been hit by lightning, blasted a hole right through the fuselage. The pilot was kind of in a daze because his electrical systems were all knocked out of whack. He brought the plane down, but those people that came off, they were just white. They thought they were going to crash, but he brought it down. That's the only thing that was close to a crash. No, there was another one. A plane took off, loaded with troops. We lost contact with that plane during the night, and then we found out in the morning that some of the Portuguese people came from the hills and mountains. They said they heard an awful noise and an awful flash of light up somewhere up in the mountain. And we sent a party up there, and that plane had run right into the mountain. Everybody was dead.
Now, speaking of incidents like that happening, was the Luftwaffe able to still harass
No,
the?
no.
They had been pushed back.
No, the Luftwaffe was done.
Okay.
No, when I came over there, the Luftwaffe just was knocked out of the skies. The British had taken care of them pretty well, and
Yeah.
the Americans too.
Yeah.
And Hitler made his big mistake in not attacking England when he had them on the ropes. He should have attacked right away, and we built up the Royal Air Force so that they were able to compete. Hitler made some mistakes which were fatal for him.
Oh yeah. Now, and I've also heard from other guys that were stationed at the Azores that because Portugal was neutral, that German U-boats could come to the other side of the island and resupply. Did you ever hear anything about that?
No, but it was strange. It was strange over there. We felt that some of the Portuguese people had sympathies with Germany.
Okay.
We detected that a little bit. I was good friends with a lot of Portuguese people there. But my scrapbook has a lot on this too in there. But that could well been earlier. I don't know.
Now, what made you kind of get the sense that they were more German sympathetic than Allied?
Well, the helmets that these Portuguese police was wearing were German helmets. We recognized it right away. They had German equipment.
Okay.
So something was going on there, you know.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But they never said anything outright.
No, not at all.
Were they a little hostile at all, or standoffish?
No, the Portuguese people were very friendly.
Okay.
I have a book up there up there. See that little white book up there?
Yeah.
That book was put out by the British forces in the Azores. And they talk about that there. I saw some pictures in there. I'll show it to you.
Okay.
But no, the Portuguese people were very friendly people, but very poor, very poor. We paid the workers 70 cents a day
Oh wow.
to work, and they were happy to get a job. So they worked in our base, and they were very loyal folks. I had two 16-year-old Portuguese young fellows that worked with me, and they would have given everything to get back to America.
Oh,
I couldn't help them, you know. They wanted
Yeah.
to get to America because they knew that we would get a haircut there for 10 cents. They would cut our hair for 10 cents at Portuguese barbers. It was a rural, poor area,
Yeah.
and they were so happy to see Americans come to provide them some work.
Okay, so yeah, the people from the Azores were very happy to see the Americans.
yes.
It was just their government may have been
Oh yeah.
playing.
There's 7 islands in the Azores, about 7 of them. I was on several. We had air bases. I was on Santa Maria. That was one of the main ones. Santa Maria was a kind of a desolate island, but we built up the air base there. There was another one, Tercia. Tercia was a beautiful island. And in working with in computers and Googling nowadays, I find that all of these are tourist resorts now. There's a lot of tourism. Yeah. So, and after the Americans left, the war was over. I'm not sure we have a base there anymore, because I have clippings from Time magazine saying that we were thinking of pulling, this was some years ago, we were thinking of pulling out of the Azores. But you know, we could not make it across the Atlantic without a refueling stop.
Well, yeah.
That's why we had to have the Azores.
Yeah.
We flew from the States up to Newfoundland, from Newfoundland to the Azores. From the Azores, we flew to Rome, to Paris, Casablanca, and so on.
Yeah.
Now, instead of going to Newfoundland, a number of our planes went to Bermuda. We had a northern route and a southern route. From Bermuda, we came to the Azores. So we had a lot of traffic going in and out of the Azores.
Oh yeah. It's a main junction point
yeah.
for.
Traffic going both ways.
Yeah.
But the planes could not cross without a refueling stop.
No.
Now we do it. Now we fly halfway around the world.
Yeah. And we have mid-air refueling. And all
Mid-air
that.
refueling and all that. You know, we didn't have any of that.
No. And then you also said this was technically a British base that was being used by the United States. Did you run into any British?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. They had to stop every afternoon to have a cup of tea, spotted tea, a cup of tea, you know. They had their own culture. A spotted tea and a muffin, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were good. They were okay.
They're-
We didn't have a lot of interaction with them, but we knew them.
But the interaction you had was,
Yeah.
it was good. Okay. And then speaking of, again, about the Azores, what were living conditions like?
The living conditions for the natives were poor. They were content with just a lot of stones, buildings there. They used stones for fences and for buildings. We lived in barracks that were made out of metal.
Okay.
And we went through some terrible storms, hurricanes. I thought at one time my place was going to blow away. We had one hurricane that came through. It was we had to load sandbags on the bomber wings to keep them from flying down the runway.
Oh wow.
So, it wrecked our control center at the air base. Hurricanes were the most dangerous thing we faced over there, and they came rather regularly right off the coast of Africa.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
You're right in the path of storms like that.
I arrived in the Azores by boat. I landed, I was there 2 days. I got a call from the commanding officer, and he said, I come up here, I got a telegram for you. I thought, oh, telegram, what in the world's happening now? And I got a telegram, I got it yet in my scrapbook. My brother sent me a telegram, said, Dad died June 1. Try to come home. Well, nobody knew where I was. We had a blackout. I was gone for 18 days. My dad had died. I think he died of anxiety. He didn't know where I was.
Oh, yeah.
So I went back and I said to the commanding officer here, I just got here 2 days ago. I says, and I get this telegram. I didn't expect it to do anything about it. And he says to me, I'll tell you what, there's a plane leaving for the States tonight. He says, get on it and go home if you like, and be sure to come back. He said, you can be home for 10 days, 14 days, I forgot what it was. So I flew back to the States. I landed in one of the air bases there. And I thought, being Air Force, I could hook a ride on a plane to the Midwest.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy that was on with me, and he says, "Oh, we had to get to another air base, and I've forgotten where those places were around there. Let's just start out hitchhiking," he says. Well, I wasn't a great fan of hitchhiking. But I said, okay, well, we started to hitchhike. A pickup truck came along. There was a guy driving it. And he looked like he might have been a soldier. He was wearing suntans or something, but we didn't know. And he said, where are you guys going? And we said, we're going to the other air base, wherever it was. Oh, I'm going that direction. He said, just hop in. Well, I think I was sitting in the back because we couldn't get three in the front. I was sitting, my buddy was sitting up front, and I was in the back, and so we went along all right. We came out of the Holland tunnel, and all of a sudden, police cruisers just came out of nowhere, and they blocked the road, and they hauled that guy, the driver, out of that truck. He had stolen it. He had stolen it. Well, there we were. Well, what were we doing in that truck? Well, we showed them our papers, and after they saw everything, they thought we were okay. So they let us go. But you never know when you hook a ride around some of these places.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're going to get. I wasn't fond of hitchhiking, but a lot of soldiers did it. A lot of hitchhiking.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. We got to the other air base. I flew into Chicago. I had to catch a train to Holland, Michigan. We didn't have cell phones or anything in those days, Adam.
Oh, no.
We didn't, to get to a phone, we didn't think about it back then. And I rode a train from Grand Rapids to Holland, and I got off at the Holland train station there. I walked to my home in Holland, and I walked in the door. My mother just about had a heart attack herself. She didn't know where I was, and here I'm walking in the door. But I was of course, my dad had died 2-3 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
But I was home for 10 days or so. Got up, after that, flew back to New York, got on a plane back to the Azores, and completed my training, my mission there.
All right.
Until I was able to be discharged.
Okay. So you're basically in the Azores from like July 40.
Yeah. I got it all written down there in the book. I got it all, the dates. And I was there, about until May of 46 that I had enough points to go home. They tried to keep me, they wanted to keep me there. They said, come on, stay with us. can't you stay with us 6 more months, we'll give you a promotion. And we'll send you to Paris for leave. And I said, no, I want to get back to school. Because in the fall of that year, Hope was going to start again, and I want to get back to them, you know.
Yeah.
They said, well, if you don't want to do that, how about staying as a civilian for 6 more months? And I said, no, I don't want to do that either. I'm eligible to be discharged. I got enough credits, points.
Yeah.
So I came back.
All right.
And I was discharged in Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
Okay. Now, you're running the Azores for Victory in Europe Day and Victory in Japan Day.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reaction of everyone for Victory in Europe Day?
I'll tell you, when we, in VJ Day, they just about went crazy at our base. I mean, a bunch of guys I remember yet very vividly, they broke into the PX and they stole, I don't know, 120 cases of liquor. They got themselves so drunk, they drove off the top of a cliff and all got killed. They never made it home. You know, it was a wide celebration.
Yeah,
Of course, there was celebrations in the Pacific too. I got friends here. They were training to go into Japan. And one Marine, he told me just a while back, he said, we were told our chances of dying is about 50%, he says, because we figured half of us would be killed if we had to invade Japan. So you can say what you want about the atomic bomb, but it saved American lives. It took a lot of Japanese lives, but it saved a lot of the Japanese lives too. Because those people would have fought, and it would have been terrible.
Yeah.
And it's just, isn't it remarkable now that the Japanese are our friends?
Yeah. One of our best allies.
Yeah.
All right. Were you concerned at all that you might get selected to go to the Pacific?
It sure was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. Like I said, I was on the on that list to go to the Pacific. And can you imagine, 1 hour later, the hospital calls and says, scratch that guy, he's got to come into the hospital and have an operation. So everybody went and was gone, and I was left, and I went east instead of west. And going east was better than going west, at least at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
things were winding down.
Yeah.
In Europe.
Yeah, I mean, because let's see, you probably got, when did you get to the Azores?
When did I what?
When did you get to the Azores?
Get that, it's in that book there. You want that big book.
Let's see.
The big scrapbook.
This one?
Yeah.
Or
the big one.
Yeah,
right there. Right there you will see it, Adam.
Yeah.
You see what I written there?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you went...
You can take it along with you in there.
Yeah, here.
I wrote that down the other day because people were asking me that, and I thought, you see when I left, and then I came back shortly after because my dad died, and then I went back again, so the dates are all there.
Okay, so I'll just say for the recording, you left the U.S. on May 21st, 1945 by boat, arrived on June 4th, 1945, then you left the Azores on June 6th, arrived in the U.S. June 7th, left the U.S. in on July 15th, 1945, arrived in the Azores July 16th, and then you eventually left the Azores May 1st, nearly a year after the war had ended in Europe.
Yep.
So what were you doing for a year after the war in Europe had ended? Just dealing with troops being
redeployed, and that went on and on.
Yeah.
And we had traffic there, and we maintained that base for years after I left.
Yep.
We didn't shut that down at all.
Right, because then
You know,
we also want to have
because
that.
because well, you know, things are slow and being shut down. We still have troops all over the world yet.
Oh yeah.
You know, we got troops in Korea, South Korea.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
Germany.
the Azores pretty much has been bypassed now as a refueling stop.
Yeah.
We're not needed anymore.
No. Yeah.
Those days are gone.
Well, yeah.
So now you fly directly to Paris and you fly to London directly.
Yeah. Then another question I wanted to ask too was when you did get to the Azores, you know, how, and during your time in the service, how much were you able to keep up with the war, like news-wise?
We had contact with the British BBC in London.
Oh, okay.
I can still listen to the radio there, and I found all the news out of BBC. And I tuned into the radio, and they would say, "This is London calling in the North American service of the BBC." And then you'd hear Big Ben, you know, tolling. And we had all the news we wanted from out of London.
Okay.
So, but you know, being there, we were so isolated. We didn't have any. Once in a while, a USO group would come over and put on a show for us. We had Phil Silvers come over and presented, and we had some movie stars. I got pictures in the book there of some of them. I forgot their names. They're pretty good-looking gals, but we lost track of who they were. And other than that, we didn't have a lot. But we got movies flown in from time to time. I can still remember some of the movies that we saw, all in black and white, of course. Going My Way. Did you ever hear that movie?
I've heard of it. I'm not sure how many people watching may have, but yeah, it's...
Going My Way and a few others. The number of really good movies that we saw was probably fingers in one hand, but some were not too good. But we had to have some entertainment.
Well, yes. Yeah, I mean, some form of downtime.
We'd go to town. We'd go to town and get something to eat in a little restaurant there. We could walk to town, a little village there. We went to a restaurant. I got a bill in there yet from one of the restaurants there. For 70 cents, you could get a meal or so.
Oh, wow.
The most popular thing was eggs and steak. A little steak and eggs. That's about all they served.
But still, yeah.
But it was a diversion from getting away from camp.
Yeah, something to do.
And, you know, I had a lot of free time there. And we probably had more troops working there than were needed. There was a time for a while I used to work at that air base every third night. Well, every third night, and what are you going to do the rest of the time off? Try to do something.
Well, yeah.
All I had to do was just supervise the mess hall. That's all I had to do. That's my job. And I had such good Portuguese workers. They did all the busy work. No, all the preparing of the food, all the cleaning and everything. We were just managers.
So what did you do to pass the time?
Well, we went down we had a little place there where we could listen to records.
Oh, okay.
Big records. Did all that. And we another thing that was popular, I don't know if any of these vets have ever mentioned that, but the Army put out little books to read. I brought back a whole box of books that the Army put out for us to read, and novels. We did a lot of reading. They provided us with material.
Okay. All right. So let's see. It says.
You can page through there and you can see some things in there.
Okay.
Oh.
So I'll.
I saved a lot of material, even my induction notices and so on, and some of my passes. And I thought, why am I saving this? But historically, it's kind of interesting now. to people that view that,
Well, yeah, I mean, especially part of this is a lot of people wouldn't understand it.
there's a train pass, for instance, there. I think that's a train that I took
Yeah.
back there in those days.
So it would come as a shock to someone who has never been.
There's my dog tags there in it.
Oh, look at that. So let's see. You get back to the U.S. on May 1st, and it says that, or you left on May 1st, you got back on May 8th, and then you were discharged on May 11th,
Yeah, so then I had to
1946.
wait. Hope was starting again in the fall. So I picked up a job here and there around Holland for the summer.
Okay.
Got back to Hope, and when I started Hope before the war, I had a scholarship at Hope College.
Really?
Adam, how much do you suppose tuition was in 1943
Oh.
per year?
Per year? Oh, I'll say $500.
$125.
Oh my gosh.
$125 was tuition. Now, when I went to Hope, I had a scholarship which paid for the second semester of every year. So when I went there before I went to war, I had to pay $62.50 for that first semester. And then, of course, when I came back, I never used the scholarship because the GI Bill took care of all my needs.
Right.
So I tell my kids and grandkids my entire college education cost $62.50. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I'd have to wonder what that'd be in today's money, but it's still.
That's all I ever paid. And then everything was paid for. The GI Bill was so great. I graduated from Hope, became a teacher, taught mathematics in high school, college, retired from Calvin College.
Okay.
I was a loans officer there in later years. I taught in Fremont High School, and I spent a year at Michigan State, taught there. At Michigan State College, it was called in those days.
Oh, okay.
And then in later years, the government got upset that we were falling behind the Russians. When the Russians put up their first satellite, Sputnik or whatever it was, they thought we math and science people had to go back to school. So I spent 4 summers at Western Michigan
Okay.
University, got a master's degree there.
What were they having you study? I mean,
Studied mathematics.
just more
More mathematics.
more math?
Yeah.
Focusing on
I got-
calculus or something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I took courses I took the program at Western Michigan for a master's degree. I got a master's degree in math and science. And then I taught at Grand Rapids Christian. I taught at Calvin College. When they needed me from time to time, they'd call and
Okay.
say, we need a teacher. They were kind of loaded with freshmen sometimes during the year, and they'd call for help, and I would teach a late afternoon class there.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then later on, I took the job as loans officer there,
Okay.
in which I worked with student loans.
Okay. When did you graduate from college?
1949.
1949. And then, one quick question: was the government's idea just that if the teachers have a better understanding of math and they can teach it to students better?
Well, they thought in those days that, and maybe it's still true, that graduating high school kids were deficient in math and science education.
Okay, so
And so they got upset about that, the Russians are going to beat us to this or that. So then the National Science Foundation was established, and they took care of us and sent us as many as, well, let's see, I went over to Seton Hall University too in New Jersey for a summer. And the government paid our tuition, and he paid us living expenses. It was one of those handouts again.
it all
You don't
worked.
remember any of that? You don't know anything about that.
Oh no.
But that's what's going on. Yeah, in the early days of the space age.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so anyway, they treated us well, and I didn't spend anything for my education, even on my master's degree programs.
Well, hey, it worked out.
I don't know,
for
what
you.
do you pay it? What do you pay nowadays? Several thousand. I have
Oh.
a granddaughter that graduated from Grand Valley.
So it's about 11,000 a year.
Oh boy.
Yep. And that's not with books or living or anything.
Yeah.
That's just straight tuition.
My granddaughter tells me what she pays for a book nowadays, and I'm shocked.
Oh yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's high. And then another question too is, were you involved in any veterans organizations?
No, I thought of that, but I did not. I could have gone to the VA. I'm not even working with Veterans Administration for health needs. But I thought if I needed help, I could go to the VA anytime I wanted. I have my own. Calvin furnishes me with good insurance,
Oh, okay.
even as a retiree,
Okay.
and I get Medicare now. You know.
But you did take part. You did participate in the Talons Out honor flight.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
great. That is a great deal we had there. And boy, there's another group leaving in September.
Yes, I saw that on their website.
Is that from Kalamazoo? Maybe.
Maybe.
From
I
Kalamazoo.
think. Yeah, I think this one's from Kalamazoo.
They treated us so well. Of course, that was a big day.
Yeah.
Got up at 4:45 in the morning. We left here at 7. First we had a breakfast at Gerald Ford Airport. We flew there an hour and a half. We were there. Spent the whole day there. I got back the following morning at 1:45 before I got to bed again. But coming back here, it was the greatest reception you ever heard. They bussed us over to East Kentwood High School, and there were about 3,000 or more people there waiting to greet us. It was really something, quite an emotional day.
Very good.
We had a chartered plane.
Oh, yep.
How much do you suppose it cost to charter the plane
Oh.
for the day? It was
day.
our plane for the day.
Oh, $15,000.
75,000.
Wow.
But they flew us down. We had military people with us. We had politicians with them. I talked to Bob Dole when we got there. He was over at the memorial. And the plane sat there all day waiting for us to load again, and they flew us back again at night.
There you go.
And they gave us a lot of stuff, and probably the other vets have shown you some of the stuff. I can show you some of the stuff in the bag here.
Oh yeah. You can definitely show.
In that bag over there are some things that they gave us. They gave us this, they gave us a jacket,
Yeah.
and all donated money.
Wonderful. And then as a kind of final point too, to wrap up things, when you look back in your time in the military, in your service, what are some things that you took away from that?
Well, we grew up fast. We go in as 18-year-olds. I was out before I was 21, but I feel I matured a lot. But I did not see the combat that some of our poor friends saw, you know. In my church in Holland, we had something like 120 guys gone. You take 120 young fellows, married men and all, gone. They're all in the Army or Navy or Air Corps or someplace.
Yeah.
We lost one. He was shot down over Europe. Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
Most of us came back okay. But, oh man, I've got friends that saw some action in the Philippines. Oh. I got a friend here right now. He went on this Talons Out about 3-4 years ago. He tells me the stories he fought in the Philippines, and oh man, what action they saw.
Yeah. Let's see. Everyone, but there's also everyone was doing their own thing in their own way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't.
But there will not be another war fought like this again.
No.
Not like the way it was there.
No. I mean, it would never.
But
it would end very bad.
it was an experience that I didn't think while we were there. I didn't feel sorry for myself. After all was said and done, I was thankful to be home. I married my wife 3 years later after I got home. There she is, right there in a picture.
Oh. Very pretty. Very pretty.
And my picture is up on that.
Oh yeah. Let's see if we can.
You wanna?
Let's see if we can do.
Can you get it?
Yep, it's auto-focusing and giving some good light. Yes, that is. There we go.
Got it, huh?
Yes. Well, I think that really wraps up the interview.
Okay.
Honestly, it's a very interesting
Well,
story.
it's very nice, and we will await something to come forth from you guys.
Oh yes, it should be very soon. I want to thank you again.
How long will this be about?
Oh, a couple weeks for the interview.
Couple weeks, and you're going to get a book together or something?
Well, you'll get the interview. The book is gonna.
What am I going to get? Am I going to get a copy of the interview?
Yes.
Or something? I will.
Yep, you will in about 2-3 weeks. And then the book that Talon's Out is putting together, that I'm not sure when that is coming out. But yes, you will get a copy of your interview in a matter of weeks.
On a DVD.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate that. We got a DVD on the Talons Out flight. Did you ever see that one?
Yes, you guys have shown it.
You've seen it already.
Yep.
It's short, only 16 minutes or so.
Oh yeah, but
But it's interesting.
Oh yeah.